Now, how would you all describe to me an educated person? If y'all refer to somebody as an educated person, what would that person? Yes, ma'am. And this is the question that these are the questions that I've been thinking about in terms of if we got this thing school. First, let's break down what the purpose is, and then second, is there a way possibly to do things different? And if we've committed to do things different, then what would it look like? Let me ask you all another question. How many of you all would say, in your experiences, now you all are seniors, in your experience, how many of you all would say that you all had a good teacher?
I had a couple good teachers too. But they only lasted for a little while.
Now here's the thing. Now, in you all's opinion, what would you say made them good?
They had their own techniques. Like they'll teach you what they learned, the way they learned. They'll be like, they'll come up with their own strategy. Like, you know how sometimes teachers have an agenda on how to teach and what expected of you to teach. They'll take their time, like, you know, show you an easy way to remember stuff, and then that'll stick.
So you all just identified key points, right? So when you said strategies and techniques, so in college education, we always call that the pedagogy, right? So what's the strategy and techniques that you use to actually engage folks, right? And how when you start looking at that, why is that relevant? You said you had a good one.
I think every student in the classroom learning something or remembering something make you a good teacher. And also, like, trusting your teacher is another thing. Like, you gotta trust your teacher to teach you, like, all the good stuff, or just even anything about outside life. You gotta trust your teacher. But like I said, like, a teacher making sure every student in the class learn, that's a good teacher.
So yes, sir.
I had a teacher that told me if you can make learning more fun, it'd be easy. She was active with her learning. Like, it had everybody feel like less drowsy in class and stuff. Feel like it's gonna take all day because they ain't getting the work done.
Man, y'all hitting all the points. Yes, ma'am. You had your hand up.
I feel like every teacher is a good teacher, but it's a different way of how they teach people. And I feel like, but I feel like it's the kids' choice to want to learn how they teach. Like, some teachers ain't no, like, how can I say it? Like, it ain't gonna be one teacher that's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a teacher that's hard on you and trying to push you to do something.
Yes, sir.
Well, all teachers I get, I feel like I'm forced to do work in school because I learn real slow, so I got to take time. Once they on another subject, I didn't feel that subject because I ain't learning.
Well, no, because the same thing that you described, it's an issue with me, right? So I have to do things really. I have to do things very methodically when something is put. So when I have to do anything with numbers, I have to really pace myself and go at a particular pace, right? And when I was in school, I lucked out and had somebody who was like, okay, when you think about it in this way, here's how you can pace this up. So all the things that you all identified, this is what people would talk about as good pedagogy, right? Active learning, techniques and strategies, this thing around understanding pace, this thing about keeping folks awake. All of these things arguably get lost when people train to become teachers. All right? So this thing around, so if I understand that to be true, then where is the space that I interrupt that? Right? So so and this is me, right? How do I interrupt that? So I know all the things that you all have explained are happening in the school space. So now, if I know teachers are also feeling this too, because I was actually talking to a group of new teachers, they were like, man, we gotta do all this stuff that's really not connected to the things that we're trying to do. So now, with them, I had to say, all right, what is it that you're trying to do? And based on what it is that you're trying to do, how are you going to communicate that to the young folks in your classroom under these conditions, right? So now, what will you do, right? And actually take them through that. So this thing around what you all have identified, I would say, if we listen to that on the front end, we can make classroom space different, but then an even deeper question. If we made learning relevant with the places that we learned in, would we even call them schools? Shift, and you talk about being able to kind of put things together a little bit better. Do y'all remember changing how you all sat in third grade? Yeah. What was that? Say it. It's at desks, right? And before third grade, were y'all at tables? No, some of y'all at or in kindergarten. Do y'all remember being at tables? Carpet tables. Because this thing, so what you all have identified is this different thing. So with young folk, with little ones, the idea is you're learning from your environment. But then a group of folks who have kind of made these things schools have said, all right, once you get to this certain age, then it shifts up on you. So the material gets different. You start to do things a little bit different. Then something else happens in that third grade. And now you use Chicago as an example, right? So I'm born and raised here. I just grew up a little bit further south on 87th Street. This thing around that shift, something else happened in third grade that we very rarely talk about in relationship to you all as young folks. Huh? It is. Testing, right? So testing changes up the whole thing, right? So when you start to be tested, certain folks make decisions around either being more responsible to the education as you all have defined it, thinking about things, whether or not the things that are outside are relating us, bringing those things from the outside into our classroom space, or teaching to what? And this becomes the question. This is so the last 15 years I've been trying to argue this point. What is this difference between education and school? And can school be a place where education happens, especially when we've identified that a lot of our education comes from outside of that place? Right? So this point, just what you said on this is always a question I've been asking. What are schools for? Right? But these are the type of questions. So not to send us off, but to really think about this thing, school, right? To really ask this question. This stuff has been put on us, and when we don't ask questions of it, we go into it, and a lot of times what we see, we go into it and we actually reject it. Right? So when I see a young person, when I think about little ones, I see every time I see the young bloods in the office, I'm always like, what are they there for? Right? Because me, real talk, I got suspended from kindergarten. Real talk. Like sitting at a table, and our kindergartners line up to go to the bathroom. One day, me and my guys was like, man, I ain't lining up. In fact, I'm not gonna line up. I'm gonna stand out in the hallway and dance. What? Yeah, so I was just in the hallway, just singing a song in my head, and one of my classmates was like, I'm telling you. I was like, no, you're not. Right? And then we get back in the piece, and said I was bogus. So my guy so we sat in between them. My guy pushed her, I spit him. So that was, but from that day on, from that day in kindergarten till I was in 4th grade, I was marked, right? So I was just marked, right? So I come to class and they'd be like, Stovall, you know where to go, right? I'm like, oh, right? But this thing around how these, and again, for a mistake, but the question becomes, does the mistake ride with you to forever? And that's always the question about school. So the person who interrupted that for me was my 4th grade teacher. She was like, look, it's good to see you. She said, I need you to understand a couple of things. She said, I'll fight you and I'll win. And I was like, and in my head, you just kind of like, oh, maybe she would, right? the other thing she said was, look, the society, the larger society thinks something about you. They want to do things, they want to have you do things that actually would harm you in the end. Our job in 4th grade is to prove society wrong about what they're saying about you. Right? So from there, so when she put that on me, first thing in my head was like, all right, I'm on this. But I always think about that. She wasn't as concerned about school as she was about learning. And she felt that education was something that could or could not happen in school. And she was really concerned about, if it's going to happen in school, what does it look like? And from her name is Miss Lester. So from Miss Lester's lesson to now, I'm always thinking about, if I'm talking about improving education, then I should be talking to the folks who are experiencing it, not just theorizing about it in my own head. Right? So that's the